Good afternoon. Right. In our next presentation, we are going to look at CSS. In our previous presentation, we looked at HTML, HTML tags, HTML elements, how they are being used. But you got to realize that using HTML, your page doesn't look that nice and presentable, because I already told you HTML, linking it to the human body, HTML is the skeleton of the body. And then if you want it to be more lively and presentable, we have to add the CSS, which will serve as the flesh of the human body. Alright, so in this presentation, we are going to look at the introduction to CSS. How CSS makes a web page look like. I believe most of you have seen web pages, how nice they are, the color, background pictures, and all those stuff that beautify a web page. Alright, then we are going to look at how CSS will be used to do that. Alright, so let's kickstart. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So as I was saying, CSS describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on the screen. Describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on the screen. So with CSS, you can add color, you can add images and all stuff to your web page. Now CSS saves a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once. External style sheets are stored in CSS files. Right, external style sheets are stored in CSS files. Now you'll get to know why we have external style sheets and other types as well. Let's move on to the CSS syntax. A CSS rule consists of a selector and a declaration block. So this we have here is a selector. H1 is a selector. It selects a particular HTML element to be styled. So looking at this, all these styles are being applied to the H1 element in the HTML file. So you can see here it is applying color blue and then a font size of 12 to the corresponding H1 element in the HTML file. Alright, so you can see that the declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons. It is visible over here. So this within the curly braces is the declaration block. And then you can see that each declaration is separated by a semicolon over here and then over there. Then each declaration includes a CSS property name and value separated by a colon. Alright, then declaration blocks are surrounded by curly braces, as you can see in the diagram. So an example is this. So we have the P here, which has been selected. We all know what the P tag is in the HTML file. So we have taken the P tag, so we are going to style it, giving it a color red, and then a text align of center. So this is the selector selecting a particular element in the HTML file and then applying these styles to it. So you can see the curly braces telling you that what this is our declaration block. I believe you get it. This is our declaration block with color being a property and then red a value, text align a property and then center a value. You can see as well they are being separated with semicolons. They are being separated with semicolons. Alright, now let's move to our VS Code to see this. Okay, so this is a little web page that I've been working on. Then we want to make my biography. We want to change the color of my biography using CSS. Alright, so I've already created an external CSS file. I've already created it. So you go there then. Alright, so you can see I have selected H3. I selected H3 and I've given it a color red. I'm giving it a color red. Right, since I'm not declaring double let's say styles, I can do this color then red without a semicolon. But if I'm declaring more than one, there should be a semicolon to differentiate between them. Alright, so now let's go to our web browser and then see if my biography, yes, that is the h3 element in the file. So let's see if my biography has been edited as we stated. Alright, so you can see in our browser my biography has taken the color red because of our CSS effects that we added to it. So it is basically to make your web page more beautiful. Alright, so let's continue. Alright, so we are looking at CSS selectors. So CSS selected are used to find or select the HTML element you want to style, as I was saying. So if it is an H3 element you want to style, you just write H3 and then you open a declaration block where you can apply any effect you want to apply. Then we can divide CSS selectors into 5 categories. So there are simple selectors, which takes the name and then ID or class. Then we have combinator selectors, select elements based on specific relationship between them. We also have pseudo class selectors, select elements based on a certain state. Then we have pseudo element selectors, select and style a part of an element, just a portion of it. Then we have attribute selectors, select element based on an attribute or attribute values. So that is that about CSS selectors. So the most important thing to note is that CSS selectors are used to find or select the HTML element you want to style. Now let's move on. Now we are going to look at how to add CSS. How do we add CSS to our HTML? How do we add CSS to our HTML? Alright. Now when a browser reads a style sheet, it will format the HTML document according to the information in the style sheet. Like we saw earlier, I stated something in my CSS file and then it was applied to my HTML file. We are going to look at how to do that. Now, it is very important to know that there are 2 ways of inserting a style sheet. So we have the external CSS, we have the internal CSS, and then we have the inline CSS. So the previous one you saw was the external CSS. I created a CSS file and then I linked it to my HTML file. That one was external. Then we have the internal CSS, where we don't create a CSS file, but we write whatever effect we want to apply in the head tag of our HTML file. Then with the inline CSS, for that one, you are going to write whatever effect in the opening tag of the element. So you write whatever effect in the opening tag of the element you want to style. Alright, so let's take external CSS. Let's take external CSS. With an external style sheet, you can change the look of an entire website by changing just one file. So each HTML page must include a reference to the external sheet file inside the link element. Okay, so external styles are defined with the link element inside the head section of an HTML page. So when we go to my VS Code, right, so you can see I use the link element, then I stated style sheet, then I link it to my style.css. That is the name I gave to my CSS file. Over here you can see I could have named it oliver.css. Then when I come to the href, I have to link it to oliver.css. It is style.css because that is the name I gave to the file I created. So this is the link tag in which we have our linking of the CSS file. Okay, let's continue. All right. Okay, so this is how you link an external CSS file. So you create the CSS file and then you use this link tag to link it to your HTML file. And then you should note that it should be in your head tag. it should be inside your head tag. Alright, so that is it. So link rel style sheet, then href, then my style. So for this one, he named it my style, unlike mine, which I named style.css. He named it my style.css. I hope you can see it. Alright, so that is how to link external. That is how to link external files to your HTML document. Alright, so let's continue. Sorry. Now let's look at internal CSS. So an internal style sheet may be used if one single HTML page has a unique style. So the internal style sheet is defined inside the style element inside the head section. So internal styles are defined with the style element inside the head section of the HTML page. So this is an example. So inside the head, you can select an HTML element you want to style, and then style it in that same HTML file. You don't need to create another CSS file then link it. That one is external CSS. But for internal, you do every effect in the head tag of the HTML file, the same HTML file, like what we have in our example. So you can see the head tag, then inside the head tag, he has opened the style element, and then he has selected body, and then for body, he has added background color to it. Alright, so let's try the inline CSS, internal CSS, so that we can see what is happening over here. Alright, so it says in the head tag, so let me remove this, then we use style so that you can see. Alright, so style, then opening style, then let me use the paragraph element. So I do P, then I open my curly braces, then let's say text color, oh no, let me do the same background color. Yes, I want this, then let me do aqua. Alright, so I've done this in my HTML file. Now let's see if this effect has been applied. Now you can see I never did this in an external CSS file. It is still in the same HTML file, but written in the head tag using the style element. Alright, so this effect should be applied to the paragraph I have over here. I am Oliver Quay, a young guy of 22 years. Alright, so that should be applied to it. So let's go to our web page and see if that has been done. Alright, so you can see the effect has been applied to the paragraph I selected. So you can see it now. So I am Oliver Quay, and then there is a aqua background color over there. So that is what the internal CSS. For that one, you don't need to create a new CSS file then link it. You can do all that in your head tag. Okay, so let's continue with what we have. Okay, so we have seen the external CSS and then the internal CSS. Now let's look at the inline CSS. An inline style may be used to apply a unique style for a single element. So an inline style may be used to apply a unique style for a single element. To use inline styles, add the style attribute to the relevant element. The style attribute can contain any CSS property. Any CSS property. So inline styles are defined with the style attribute of the relevant element. So here with the inline, the style here is not an element but an attribute. That is when you're using the inline, the style becomes an attribute and not an element, unlike the internal that we saw. Right, so this is an example we have over here. So H1, then he has styled it to take a color of blue and then the text align of center. And the text align of center. Alright, so you can see that with the inline, every effect is being applied to it in the opening tag. So this is the H1 opening tag, and then the effect is being applied in there. Then you have your entity. This is a heading, and then your closing tag. So this is inline. Every effect is being applied to it in the opening tag. In the opening tag. Alright, so let's try and then do this as well. Let's try doing this. So let's take this one out. Let's erase that one. We are going to do inline, so we don't need that anymore. Alright, then let's try to style H3. Yes, let's style. So now, as I told you, our style becomes an attribute. Okay, so then we can state our values. Sorry. Color. So color, let's say I pick red, and then can do text. Text align. Alright, so let me apply the color red, and then let's see what has happened in our HTML file. Alright, so there is something we are leaving out. There is something we are leaving out which we are supposed to do. Okay, so the style outside, then the equal to, then open quotes before we apply any effect. Before we apply any effect to it. So let's do that. Then a semicolon. Semicolon. Sorry. Should be in there. Alright. Sorry. I'm coming, let me figure out where the issue is. Okay, so instead of using equal to, we have to use colon. Alright, so now we can save, then look at the change. Alright, so there is it. So my biography has taken the red color. Alright, so that is how we do the inline CSS, applying that style to a specific element in your HTML file. Alright, so move on. So we are going to move on. Okay. Now let's look at CSS comments. Now you would know that to make your code readable and understandable, sometimes we do add comments, so that if any other programmer picks your code, he knows what is happening over here and then what is happening over there. I believe you understand. And then it is important to note that comments are not executed by your browser or any IDE. For comments, they are left out when the code is being run. So for Python, we know how we write comments. For HTML, we know how we give comments. For Java, it is peculiar to every programming language. So for CSS, this is how we add comments. For CSS, this is how we add comments. So we begin with a forward slash with an asterisk. Then you give whatever information you want to give. Then you close it with an asterisk and a forward slash again. So comments are used to explain the code, as I was saying, and may help when you edit the source code at a later date. So when you add comments and then you want to edit the source code another time, when you open your file, you know this was what you did earlier. So if there's any editing you have to do, you can do it. Then, as I was saying, comments are ignored by browsers. Comments are ignored by browsers. They are not run as part of the program. So a CSS comment is placed inside the style element and starts with the forward slash and asterisk, and they end with the asterisk and the forward slash. So this is an example. So this is a comment, and then this is what the original style. So only this will be read by the browser and not this, because this is a comment. All right, so let's demonstrate. Let's demonstrate. All right, so let me link my CSS back. Let me link it back. So link rel, then style sheet. Alright, then I do the href. Then that is my CSS file is style.css. Alright. So now I have linked it again. Alright, we are missing something. Yes, this. So I have linked it again. So any effect I apply over here should be applied there. So there is this H3 over here which is taking the color red. So you can see, to prove that I have linked it, when we go, our H3 has the color red. Alright, so that tells us that our CSS has been linked. Alright, now let me add a comment. So I told you comments start with the forward slash, then an asterisk. Then I can write whatever info I want to give. So let's see, this changes the color of the H3 elements in the HTML file. Then to close it, I begin with the asterisk, then the forward slash. So this is a comment in our CSS. So let me save it and then run to see if it will be executed. If it doesn't execute, then it means comments are not read by our web browsers. So let's look at our web browser. Okay, so you can see we only have biography, which has been changed over here to the color red. That is the effect in our CSS style, but there is nothing like a comment. There is nothing like a comment anywhere. There is nothing like a comment anywhere. I hope you can see that. So meaning comments are not read by our web browsers. comments are not read by our web browsers. Okay, so that is that. Let's continue. All right, give me a sec. Coming. Okay, so let's look at CSS colors. Colors are specified. Colors in CSS are specified using predefined names. So we have RGB, we have the hex, we have the HSL, we have RGBA, HSLA values. So you can set the background color of HTML elements. Alright, so this is it. So it is using the inline CSS. That is the inline style of what? Styling your web pages. So each one, the style, they have background color being the Dodger blue. Then, so this effect will be applied to hello world. Then we have the paragraph as well, also taking up this effect. So there are so many colors in CSS, but they have their respective color names. That is the RGB, the HSL, RGBA, and other stuff. So you can set the color of text. Example, that is the H1 style color tomato, which will be applied to the hello world. You can do that. And then from the previous things I said, you know that this style of applying effect is called the inline style or the inline CSS. The external is when you create an external CSS file and then link it to your HTML file. Then we have the internal, where you use the style elements which you write in the head tag of your HTML file. Then the inline, where every effect to be applied is written in the opening tag of the element using the style attribute. Alright, so this is all about colors. And then from what we have been doing so far, you have seen how we change the color. So if we go to our VS Code now, yes, so this is color, that is red. Then if we go to our web browser, yes, so red has been applied. I can change it to any color that I want. Let me try that as well. So there are so many colors over here. I can change it to any color that I want. So let me pick blue. Then let's go and view our web page again. Sorry, there is something we are missing out. Yes. Okay. Yes, it is because there is an inline element over here. Now one thing to note is that inline way of styling always overrides any other method of styling your CSS. That is why this red color is still not leaving. So if I should take it off now and then save it, now you can see that our external CSS effect will applied. Okay, so this is it. So my biography is now blue. So one important thing to note as well is that inline way of styling your text in HTML will always override any other method of styling it, being it the external or the internal method of styling your CSS files. Alright, so having known that, let's continue. Okay, now we are looking at CSS backgrounds. Another important thing to note. So CSS background properties are used to add background effect to elements. So the background color of a page is set like this. So body, then the background color to light blue. We selected body because we want to apply a background color to everything on the page. Not only colors, but we can also use an image for our background color. For our background, I believe you have seen so many web pages with images as their background, which makes them look more beautiful. Alright, so let's try adding a background color to our HTML file. So let's go to style.css, then let's call the body. Alright, then let's apply the background color. So this is it over here. Let me use okay, so let me pick brown. So I have chosen the brown as our background color. Let me save it, and then let's look at our file now. Alright, so everything here, everything on my page now has a background color of what? Brown, because everything I have here is within the body tag. Everything I have here is within the body tag. So if I should call the body tag and apply a background color of brown, it should what? Cover my entire page. It should cover my entire page. Alright, now let's look at let's try and then add an image. Let's try and then add an image. Let's try adding an image. Okay, so to add an image, you do background image, then a URL, then your image, then your image. So let's do this VS Code. Okay, alright, so then image, do the sorry, should be here. So URL, then I have an image here, so take so in between I have new passports dot jpg. Okay, so new passport dot jpg, then my semicolon comes in. Then let's see if it has been applied as we want it. Okay, no, then it means we are missing out something. Okay, we are missing out something. Sorry. Okay. I think we need to do a cuffs, then have the new passport. Okay. So when you do this, you add it, and then your effect will be applied. So that is that for CSS. There are other things we have to look at: borders, padding, text alignment, and stuff. But we'll end over here. We'll end our presentation over here. Thank you very much.